Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Zach Kazan. I'm the managing editor at Worn and Wound. Happy New Year. This is the first podcast of that we're recording anyway in the year 2025. I'm joined today by Zach Weiss, co-founder of Worn and Wound. Zach, how's it going?
It's going well. Going well. First day back. Kind of cold in the office. I don't know what to expect. I don't know. Oh yeah, he's over there. I'm in like layers right now, and dude over there.
New Yorkers are soft.
Wow. All right. Starting 2025 off with a bang. And wow. Okay. Shots fired immediately. You just heard him. We've also got Devin Pennypacker coming back to the podcast this week. Will this be his final appearance? I don't know. It depends how many more times he
feels like
City, New York. It's good to see you, Devin. How's it going?
Good, Zach. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, anytime. So happy New Year to you both. We are going to do some 2025 predictions today. I don't know that you can call yourself a watch podcast if you don't do watch industry predictions at the beginning of the year. It's kind of a trope that we're happy to deploy here on the Worn and Wound podcast year in and year out. So we'll have some predictions that may or may not be right. I can almost guarantee none of mine will come to fruition, but we'll see. I'm curious to see what you guys think is coming up in 2025. Before we do that, let's do a quick wrist check. Zach, what are you wearing today?
I have on my Tudor Black Bay 58.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Devin, how about you? What do you got?
Wait, that's a lie. Sorry.
Oh my God! Starting the year off with a lie.
It was not a lie. It's actually it's just false. It's a Black Bay 54, not a 58. And sorry for the how intense my sudden realization was there.
Do you own a 58?
I don't own a 58. It's
oh wow.
But that might be a preview for later. 58 on my mind.
Okay. Devin, what are you wearing? Let's get it right on the first take this time.
Yeah, no problem. I have my Gen 1 Omega Planet Ocean on with my Watches of Espionage strap and wrist compass. I'm swagged out over here.
You mentioned to me over the break that you were working on writing up that wrist compass. I'm really excited to get that get that on the site. It's a pretty cool little
coming soon.
Yeah, coming very soon, most likely. I'm wearing my Fears Brunswick Aurora, which has a mother of pearl dial. I don't know if mother of pearl might come up on our conversations around 2025 predictions. It'll probably come up before we start the predictions piece. It might come up in just a really brief discussion I want to have with you about a couple of new releases that dropped very early in the year. This is usually kind of like a lull period with new releases, but yesterday, as we record, Toledano and Chan announced their follow-up to last year's B1, which is they're calling the B 1.2, which has a Tahitian mother of pearl dial and a faceted crystal. Do you guys get a chance to check this watch out? Yeah. Any initial thoughts, hot takes on
that? Wasn't meant to be so underwhelming.
Yeah.
Wow. You know what? So I didn't actually realize the faceted crystal was not on the previous model.
That's correct. Right. Yeah, the faceted crystal
cool.
is new.
That's cool.
Devin, you in our last podcast, you made a big deal about kind of being over this trend of stone dials, mother of pearl dials. Did this news enrage you when you saw it?
No, it didn't enrage me. It didn't surprise me. I mean, I think after the success of the first version, we knew that another one was coming. Hats off to them for doing the faceted crystal and kind of making it look more interesting than just swapping out the dial and releasing another version. But overall, I'm not the audience for this watch. I understand that. I appreciate that. I think it's a cool release, but just not something that I really paid too much attention to.
Yeah, fair enough. It's definitely a watch that's not for everyone. I wrote it up for the website, and one of the things I noted was that the fact that it's not a watch for everyone, so very obviously not a watch for everyone, and there's still all this discussion around it, and everyone seems to have a opinion on it. I think it's fundamentally a good thing for like the watch kind of like space, for like the culture, just because it means that there's interest in like the really kind of like genuinely different kind of experimental avant-garde stuff that's coming out. So think that's a cool thing. The other watch I just wanted to quickly mention, and I'll have more on the website about this later this week if you're listening to this podcast the day it comes out, is the new watch and the new brand from Peter Speak, one of the founders of the Speak Marin watch brand, a real kind of legend in independent watchmaking. The new brand is PS Horology. This new design is a integrated bracelet sports watch. There's a couple of different dial variants based on the kind of like the sheath or like the guard on a Japanese sword is sort of like the inspiration for the shape of this case. I posted this to my Instagram feed the second I saw it, and Devin, you immediately kind of like checked in with like a nod of approval. So this one you do like. You're a fan of this one.
I love this. Now let me be clear. I can't even afford the the deposit on this watch. There's no chance. 30% up front. But
yeah,
I think
it's a $20,000 watch, roughly speaking.
Sorry, 19,500 Swiss francs. Thank you very much.
So more than 20.
Yeah. Way more. But yeah, so Tsuba is like the name of the guard on a katana, and that's what it's modeled off of. I think it's a really cool looking piece. There's just something about it that really catches my eye. It's kind of that blend of organic shapes, but just kind of, I don't know, mixing round and straight lines together. And then that bracelet just looks incredible. Very Moser-esque, but I think, I don't know, in a more skeletal way, strangely. I don't know. I'm very, very into this watch.
Yeah. Zach, do you have any immediate kind of first impressions of this piece?
I mean, my immediate impression was that this is not what I expected from Peter Speak based on his last brand, which I think is obviously an intentional separation and break from the past. I mean, I don't really know the arc of the original Peter Speak Marin and how that came to be, like, and how eventually that the founders of the brand eventually left, Peter Speak and Marin, who then did the Naked Watchmaker together. It's a very cool website. But I think it's obviously it's years later. This is a new aesthetic concept. As far as like my personal taste in this aesthetic concept, I'm not really sure if it's for me yet. I don't know. It's very different, and it's not quite like shocking. Sort like if you compare that to Toledano and Chan, like that's like that's so far to one side of like what a shaped sort of case can be. Whereas this is, it's still sort of like a cushion case in some ways, and like it does have that sort of like you said, the Moser-esque, the sort of like biodynamic sort of biodynamic's not the right word.
That's right. Think of Oakley's in the 90s, and it's perfect.
But it has that bracelet, that very flowing organic bracelet. It's sort of an interesting mix of things. And it makes me sort of think of like Manase and brands like that, which are actually Japanese, and like what that might mean, just also the kind of interpretation of like sort of Japanese and Asian culture through the lens of Peter Speak and things like that. I mean, there's just a lot kind of to unravel there, and the dials are wildly different. Like there's the sector dial, and then the other one, which is like, I honestly have not read enough to know what that even was. So
yeah, honestly, like me neither. Like I kind of like just cracked into the press materials for it. They just came through today. First day back from vacation, so it's sort of like lots of stuff coming in all at once today. But I mean, I gotta say, like I had heard that Peter Speak had started this brand, a couple of years ago. He formed the brand, but hadn't like announced a watch. And then this, photos of this watch kind of appeared last night, for the first time publicly, as far as I know. I'm just really happy that like Peter Speak is back, kind of like on the independent watchmaking scene. He's like, I think a kind of sometimes unfortunately overlooked part of that early independent scene, and I think that it's cool that he's back with a new concept. So I'm looking forward to kind of like learning more about this and writing about it. And it's a good way to start the year. A new brand from Peter Speak. So I think that's a solid thing. All right, moving on to predictions for 2025. I asked you guys to prepare just a handful, a couple of your best guesses as to what might be in store for 2025. This is not to be taken too seriously. I think that usually we do an episode like this and we're way off. I don't know that we've ever actually gone back and done like an audit of how our predictions turned out. I imagine that would probably be pretty embarrassing for all involved. Devin, you want to get us started? Do you have a prediction for 2025 that you want to share?
Wow. Yeah. So I guess this is piggybacking off of the new Rolex price hikes. You're welcome to the entire community who couldn't afford them already. But yeah, they're more expensive now. And I think that is kind of, I don't know, I guess blazing the trail for this upcoming year. Last year was kind of an underwhelming year for releases. I think we're going to see a bit of a slew of releases from Rolex this year. I don't know if it's going to be watches and wonders or if they're going to parse them out throughout the year, but I think this is going to be a Rolex year for sure, and Tudor might be dialed back because of it.
Interesting. Any particular like collections you think are going to be touched on, or a particular update, or like what do you see coming from?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I mean, we can guess, right? Like we can sit here, we can guess. We can say new Cellini dial. We can do a new, not Cellini, but Cellini. We can talk about Yachtmasters or Submariners, but honestly, at the end of the day, they're going to come up with some weird new model that we haven't seen before. And I don't know, it'll probably be something weird in a precious metal that's roughly 45K. And it'll be a new collection for them that we'll see in steel in about 10 years.
Wow. That's bold.
Yeah, I'm going for
bold
it.
prediction.
Yeah, I'm going for it.
So you're all out new from Rolex, which is not usually the word that goes with Rolex. It's not new. I mean, did they do a titanium watch last year, or was it already 2 years ago that they did the Yachtmaster?
Was that? I think that was 2 years ago.
2 years ago,
because last year was just the GMT. Like that was the only like sports watch that they in steel that they came out with. I'm pretty sure the titanium one was 2 years ago. I could be wrong. Listen, it all becomes a blur at a certain time.
Yeah, it's a blur. It's like, was last year the Celebration and the Puzzle Dial?
No, that was the year before.
Okay, so I don't remember. I don't even know what they released last year. At all.
Last year. So last year was kind of like a lull year. That was the conventional wisdom anyway. That last year was sort of like a lull year for Rolex.
Solid gold, deep sea. Come on.
I mean,
sounds great for drowning.
Not a mass market item. Not a.
Yeah.
But the year before was the Celebration Dial OP and the Jigsaw Day-Date and like the Titanium Yachtmaster. It was all considered kind of like crazy, unexpected new releases. So you think we'll have a year closer to that, Devin, is kind of what you're saying.
I'm thinking that, I mean, so we saw this year Tudor came out with a handful of new releases and some new additions to their collections. I think that it's going to switch and Rolex is going to do that this year. So we'll see, I don't know, maybe a new Submariner bezel dial combination. Maybe we'll see a new model and then, I mean, maybe a new Daytona at this point. I'm not entirely sure.
They just did the Daytona last year. So I feel like that would be...
It's too much Daytona for you?
Too much Daytona. Okay. Like, I mean,
we're still reeling over those Le Mans, whatever's.
Yeah.
It's in yellow gold now.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, I don't know if you heard. There's a yellow gold one. It's off catalog, though. So, yeah. Is there Devin, I don't know that we've ever like talked about like Rolex specific. Do you consider yourself like a Rolex guy? Like, do you?
No, not at all. No, I mean,
I think of you as kind of like you love that Omega. Like, I think of you kind of like as an Omega guy. It's hard to be both.
I don't think I want to be an Omega guy either. There's some interesting implications on that. I love the Yachtmaster. I love that Yachtmaster in titanium. I think that's fantastic. The platinum bezel Yachtmaster from like the mid early 2000s is one that's on my hit list. But apart from that, they don't really do a whole lot for me. I can appreciate them. I think they're fine. But my time with a Submariner kind of left me going, okay, yeah, it's great. It's good for a reason, but I would never quest after the right Submariner.
Yeah. Zach, do you have any thoughts on what Rolex might do this year? It's really a fool's errand to like.
Really.
That's why you start with it.
It's just such a.
It's funny. I mean, so I did have something about their prices going up, which less having to do anything with like Rolex and what we'd see from them, and more that like that's the permission slip for the rest of the energy industry to start jacking up prices. And
I have a similar thought too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it seems so. I mean, yeah, if Rolex does it, we all can do it. It's sort of a thing. But I do know like TAG already raised the prices on their tourbillons by something between 25 and 30%. Didn't quite get it, but which whatever. That's sort of niche. But like, it's not an insignificant percentage either. But yeah, in terms of what they actually really like, as you can tell, I can't really remember or place it very well what they do. It all blurs together. I am not a Rolex guy, particularly of the modern era. I just think they kind of, after the 5-digit serial numbers, just kind of became just a luxury watch company. And I'm not into it anymore. But I think it was interesting what you said about Tudor, because to me last year for Tudor was super iterative and not really about new watches. Like
Sure.
everything sort of belonged in another line. And I don't know if they're going to break that mold anytime soon, because they've really defined Black Bay and Pelagos, and like if they're going to, line X is just going to appear out of nowhere. I think there's people would like the North Flag to come back, but
Yes.
is that really going to come back? It did, obviously the first time they brought it, it didn't do well. So they're like, probably a little tepid. I would love to see the 36 millimeter Ranger. I feel like that's been on the hit list,
Yeah.
but I think they're just going to really continue with the meta stuff. So that's why the the Black Bay 58 was on my mind, because I think they're just going to continue to convert their watches into them. Maybe we'll see really like a new next gen 58 this year. It's been a while since they've upgraded core 58s, and I think it's time.
Do you think that either Tudor or Rolex feels a certain amount of pressure to do something that will, like, I don't know, it kind of be like that, like viral sensation watch, like the year before last was for Rolex, was just like, everyone was just talking about the Jigsaw and the Celebration and the Titanium Yachtmaster constantly. I feel like neither brand really had like a durable hit like that last year. So
Yeah, I'd agree.
I don't know. I kind of feel like the pressure might be on a little bit to deliver something a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more like exciting this year.
Yeah, like the 54, like they haven't recreated the excitement that came with that watch since, and that was 2 years ago. No, feels longer.
Wow.
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting to kind of consider what Rolex and Tudor will do. Obviously, like they're the big brands that everyone is kind of like, this is the time of year where you see a lot of like photoshops of like what the new GMT might look like, or what whatever might come down the pike. But yeah, I feel like it's just whatever anyone predicts, they're almost always wrong when they get very specific. I wanted to touch on the price increases, which you both mentioned. My top line prediction for the year is that prices just across the board are going to keep going up, and it's going to be like a major point of conversation among ourselves and among enthusiasts. And I think it's just going to be like a driving kind of like force in the watch space all year, because I think that there's a lot of economic signs that point to prices going up. I think people are worried about tariffs, and they might be increasing prices, anticipating that like the next batch of watches they make are going to be even more expensive, and they need to kind of like get money in the bank for that. And we just saw with the Toledano and Chan, watch, which you mentioned at the top of the show. That watch is the original was 4,000. I think this one is 5,700. Pretty dramatic price increase. It's kind of generating a lot of conversation already. So yeah, I just think that like prices are going to be higher across the board this year, and it's going to be something that like we will be talking about a lot. Either of you guys have any thoughts on that? And any?
Yes. I don't think any brand, especially like luxury group brand, is going to miss the opportunity to raise prices. Certainly. I think the Toledano and Chan argument is really interesting, and I have only briefly looked at comments, but just like, once again, like knowing a little bit more about like manufacturing and the cost of watch components and things of that nature and machining, like I don't think the price is at all actually outlandish. I mean, sure, maybe the price increase is uncomfortable, but there are other components. I mean, a sapphire crystal like that could easily be probably like 150, like, well, I'm thinking Frank's better saying, but like, and then a mother pearl dial, you have to deal with importing on that, machining a 904L steel bracelet. Like, those are not inexpensive watches. I mean, the movement honestly might not even be the biggest factor in those watches at all. And it is a Swiss movement, but it's like a smaller 3-hand movement. That's probably honestly like almost a wash on that one. It's everything else. And I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of ate margin on the last one just to get it out at that price point initially. But that's all just hypothesizing. But like, once you just kind of have to think like that watch by another brand could be 15K, and if it just started there, you kind of wouldn't argue with it. A good example, the Peter Speak. I mean, that's starting at 20K, has a voucher movement in it, which is an expensive movement, but is like But the rest of it, how comparable? I don't know. Could be more made in Switzerland and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm just
For sure.
off on a tangent now. But yeah, prices going up. Sorry.
Yeah. Devin, you have anything to add on the pricing situation? I feel like we've talked about this before, just kind of like the inevitable kind of like rise in prices across the industry.
Yeah, it's going to keep happening. This is happening to everything, not just watches. And yeah, a company is going to release a watch at a price that makes sense for them at the time. And then 4 years down the road, they're probably going to have to raise the prices on it, or the next version comes out at a higher price point. That's normal. That's what happens. It's unfortunate because it affects all of us. And we obviously want our money to go as far as it possibly can. And we can buy more watches if they're priced lower, but that's just not the reality of it. And I think people get a little frustrated too when you have companies talking about posting record years, the highest number of sales or highest profit numbers. And then they also mention, and we're going to increase prices by 20%. That's where I think a lot of the frustration kind of makes sense. But ultimately, we're not going to convince anyone not to post that as the top comment. No one's going to stop piling on. It's just the unfortunate reality that we live in. And in a way, hot take, it might be kind of good because it's going to create a little bit of room towards the bottom end for some of these brands that aren't getting the eyeballs that they deserve.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Increases like the boundary of value in a sense. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
But also, I think just like personally, it'll cause me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, to just be more deliberate in what they buy.
Watch media is more important than ever now.
Exactly. Yes. Well said. Yeah. Zach, you have a prediction for 2025?
Sure. So, well, I actually just thought of this at the beginning of the show, but it's 2025, which means it's a quarter of the century down, which means there's got to be some anniversary watches based on just 25 years of 2000s, right? I mean, this is big. I
mean, every year, as you're fond of saying, is an anniversary. So
this is an anniversary for everyone. Sort of. It's just I mean, I haven't seen anything yet to confirm that, and maybe it's wrong. I mean, everyone probably thinks about themselves first, but 2025, sort of a big year in the scheme of years.
So, how do you think that would like manifest in a watch?
A lot more marketing. No, I mean, it's all BS. This is sort of a joke, but it is more just that every year is an anniversary year. There will be a lot of anniversaries, but maybe this time, I mean, we already it's interesting seeing like the Year of the Snake stuff come out immediately. Like maybe every year that's like, and I understand people buy for that reason that it celebrates that. So, might as well celebrate year 2025 if you go by our calendar.
Yeah. I mean, the Lunar New Year watches, which I mean, we are in the thick of it now. I've got Lunar New Year stuff on the calendar for the next week because we're, like I said, we're in a bit of a lull, and the stuff that's being announced that's coming out is Lunar New Year of the Snake watches. That's that's year to year. That's a pretty durable release strategy for sure. It would be a great if anyone on the team or anyone in watch media is more like diligent about research than us, like it would be smart.
We're the top of the media game. Sorry,
it would be smart to like do some research and figure out like who's having anniversaries ahead of getting those press releases that like, oh, we're having our 125th anniversary or whatever, so we can kind of like,
but it's dizzying.
Predict what's coming a little bit.
Because it's like they'll celebrate a movement. Like Grand Seiko does anniversaries for their movements, for themselves, for the cases, for like, it's impossible to not. I agree, it would be great to know those things in advance, but good luck. I mean, you'd have a list of potentials that is thousands of things long. It's like,
also, like, I just simply don't want to do that research. That sounds
mind numbing.
Sounds terrible. Devin, have you ever bought an anniversary watch? Has that ever been tempting to you?
Not in the slightest. No, a personal anniversary, sure. But no, I don't.
You've never walked into an AD and they've said, "Listen, it's the 23rd anniversary of this case shape.
I'll give them a pat on the back. I'll take a free glass of champagne and then go on with my day." No, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, yeah, it's great to have staying power. And I think that, I don't know, maybe the brands will use that to kind of change public opinion of them to, try to cement themselves as like a legacy brand at that point. But more than anything, I just think it starts to blur the lines between neo vintage and vintage. So it's just bad for me. It's just more confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. The anniversary watches do not tempt me at all for the anniversary aspect. I mean, sometimes they, you know, you have a fun design or whatever. It's a cool watch, but yeah, I don't know. It's not something not something that draws me in personally. But I think you're right, Zach. I think it'll be another year of anniversaries.
Yeah.
As every year is.
Yeah.
In the watch industry.
I'll make the same prediction at the beginning of 2026. There'll be more anniversary watches this year as well.
I think you should write like a 3,000 word opinion piece about anniversaries. You can just run it on the first of the year every year. Just about the year of anniversaries. Devin, what's your next prediction for 2025? Let's
Well, I mean, I guess this is kind of a bland one, especially considering the two watches that we talked about at the top of the show. But I think that the independent makers or the smaller brands are going to really take center stage this year and blow all the big brands out of the water. Yeah, we're going to see big releases from brands we get excited about, but I don't know. I think last year we saw that wave sweep through the industry, and we saw some really cool, unique pieces coming out. And I think it's just going to keep on building.
Man, I hope you're right. I've been saying this. I feel like this is a prediction I've made, in previous episodes going back years. I'm always hoping for the small kind of like, more adventurous stuff to get recognition. And it does kind of feel like we're at a point where that's starting to happen. I think it happened last year. I think that there were a lot of really great independent releases at all price points, last year. And I don't see any reason why that would slow down. I worry a little bit about certain trends being overdone, like mother of pearl dials and things like that. As much as I love mother of pearl, there's always a danger of just people getting sick of things being repeated over and over again. But
it is very funny to see those trends like mother of pearl kind of surge, because like mother of pearl, there's always been mother of pearl watches coming out every year by brands, since we've done this. And I remember early on just being like, why does this exist? Why am I looking at this press release for a mother of pearl watch? And now it's coming up from brands like the two you have, the Fears and Louis Erard Excodogi, and those are both like gorgeous watches. I've seen them in person. I 100% like them. I would own either of them too. It's like I've turned the corner on the aesthetics of mother of pearl as well. But like, why did we all turn that corner at the same time? Like, is that just how trends are? It's just sort of like a mix of mass hysteria and like products to fulfill it. I don't know.
It's a very strange thing. I think sometimes I was thinking about this as I was writing up the Toledano and Chan, and like my interest in mother of pearl like really clicked with the watch I'm wearing, with the Fears Brunswick Aurora. I remember seeing that at Wind Up for the first time and just thinking like, oh, well, that is like an incredibly beautiful dial. And it sent me down in the rabbit hole, and I haven't really like come back out. So I think, sometimes it's an individual watch. Sometimes it's like just seeing things over and over again. It kind of like worms its way into your brain like a Sabrina Carpenter pop song or something. Wow. And it just kind of like, you just eventually can't get it out of your head. You just have to embrace it. And,
you're going to go a different direction with a brain worm there, but it's cool.
Listen, there's all kinds of, well, okay.
Moving on.
I totally agree, Devin. I think that this would be definitely a year to watch the independents. Zach, this is something we talk about a lot, is sort of like wanting to see the small brands, like the adventurous stuff, the independent watchmakers, come to the forefront. And do you agree? It feels like they're having a moment.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like there's really good momentum in that sector that we keep writing about some of these brands, and I think there'll be new ones that will pop up or move up in their price bracket to kind of achieve things that I do think there is sort of a barrier, at least for the kinds of watches that I think that I'm most interested in, like let's say Bel Canto up through the Haberings, and probably like maxing out at maybe like 20K or so, like that. It just seems like that's a really healthy market segment right now for really interesting things by independents. They're not going to compete on with a mainline luxury. Like, you're not going to compete with Omega on the movements there and things like that. But like, you can make something that's so much more adventurous and creative and exclusive ultimately, just because small brand making 300 watches in a year, just like the nature of that. So I just think that it is really really ripe. And to be honest with you, like barring basically Tudor and Grand Seiko, like I'm not that interested in any other major brand, right? Like I'd be if one of those brands, one of the kind of brand, tent pole brands releases something that blows my mind, I will be shocked.
Alexis,
I'm
just wait.
Yeah, then that'll be really the day. But I don't know. I'm just purely excited for that independent space now. It's just so much more interesting. And I was thinking about it the other day, like I think it's largely because the passion is there, right? It's like it's just two different motivations. One side has to sell product to keep this giant monster going. The other side is hopefully making product that they deeply care about. And, the resulting sales keeps their business moving and et cetera. But it's like, it's the deeply caring part that matters the most,
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that, like the big luxury brands that are part of big luxury groups, like they're making products for a mass market that are, focus grouped in a boardroom, oftentimes. And I agree. I mean, I think a lot of times the passion isn't there. There's they make a lot of times like very good watches that I would like to own, watches I have owned, and watches I do own. But there's not a level of excitement, I think, in the same way that there is in the world of like kind of smaller independent brands. So yeah, it's an exciting time for sure for indies. I've got a prediction. This is what I thought of right before we jumped on the call. I feel like every year for the last several years, there's been some new watch with like a thinness record of some kind. I think we're done with that. I think we've reached like peak
max
thinness. I don't think we're going to have a thinness record this year. I feel like maybe next year there might be, but I feel like the last round of like ultra thinness, and I guess it was Chaikin over the summer. There was a little bit of like, okay, we're done with this, or like we've reached a point where like it's just getting silly. And I kind of feel like maybe the brands understand that, and even if they have something that's thinner, they might hold it back, for a year or more, because they risk, maybe self-parody at this point. But yeah, I don't see a headline in our future of like new record-setting Bulgari, for example, or Richard Mille. I think that the thinness wars. I think there's a truce in the thinness wars right now.
I mean, that they're already developing a new thinner watch as we speak right now. Like that's happening.
I don't doubt that they're developing all kinds of things. I just think that like in terms of releases and news that we'll be able to like get our eyes on. I think they're taking a year off. I think that
we get 1 year break.
Yeah,
but it is like the Piaget, Bulgari, now Richard Mille, and I don't think Chaikin's gonna like try to up himself again. Like that was quite the feat, I think, also for an independent. I think that made that especially cool. Yeah. But it's like their thing. They have to have a real thin watch. I just wish honestly that there was more like interesting technology that came out of it that moved into other watches. Like I don't need a 0.5 millimeter thick watch, but like incredibly well-made 5 millimeter thick watches would be amazing,
Yeah, that's a really good point, because this stuff is so specialized, it doesn't really trickle down. I feel like the thin Bulgari that came out last year, like it needs to be wound in a special box, and there are other thin watches that kind of have a similar setup, and like that's not something that's replicable in a consumer product. Probably like it's just such a special thing.
And didn't the Chaikin have like an extra case back that like made it as thick as a normal watch, so you could actually like wear it and not break it, basically?
I think, I did. Sounds like that's a fun idea. I like that. I do think that the Chaikin watch is maybe a little bit different because it is an independent, and it's like it represents some real ingenuity. Devin, you have any thoughts on this? You're not known as someone in my mind who prizes thinness wearing that.
No, I don't care about the thinness. I mean, I'm wearing a 15.5 millimeter thick dive watch right now, so that does not on a NATO, no less. So it's thick. I want this, like you said, the trickle down effect. I think it would be cool if, like F1, they develop new technology for the race cars, and then eventually it gets down into Daytona cars, and then eventually into consumer products. It'd be great if something like that happened, but it's just not. And so rather than innovating on thinness, I would love for them to go back and start innovating on shape. I was pouring through vintage movements on my Saturday morning, as most people do, and came across a couple really cool early 1900s pieces that had 45-degree angled movements, so they would wrap around your wrist a little bit better. And stuff like that has kind of disappeared from modern watchmaking. And it would be cool if they went back and started working on stuff like that again. So we had more interesting wearing experiences rather than horrible wearing experiences, but thin watches.
Yeah. Sorry, Zach, did I cut you off? Did you?
Oh, no, not really.
He was in awe of how
I was in
amazing
awe. Yeah. No, I mean,
of Devin's very
Yeah.
distinct point.
my
Yeah.
if I were
Saturday
to
morning
continue
routine.
the tangent though, and this is a new prediction I'm making right now. Actually, this is not a prediction. We're at wish list at this point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Things
this is
I
all
wish.
just wish casting. I think
Yeah.
this podcast is that's basically what this is.
To see another like innovative use of silicon in a movement, like a more mass producible movement. When Frederic Constant did theirs, the monolith, is that what it's called? Something like that.
I think so, yeah.
Like that was super cool. It kind of went away for whatever reason, but I feel like that technology is still clearly ripe for development and mass production. And I feel like logically that removes a huge amount of components from a watch, so that could also lead to thinner watches. So yeah, I don't know. I would love to see another brand go back to that. I mean, maybe I feel like that'd be like a Heuer or a Zenith or something like that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, Zenith
Yeah.
did do it.
Zenith
first,
had a
yeah.
version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was it felt like for a minute that there were going to be like a slew of these like high frequency oscillator
Yeah.
watches that just kind of like vibrated at a rate that you thought was going to kind of break your brain. And they kind of, like you said, they kind of went away. I don't know. I mean, I feel like the Zenith example was like they maybe like didn't deliver a ton of them, or maybe like
It was
the
very
technology
small
wasn't-
production. Yeah, they did that one run of the like foam aluminum cases. Remember?
Yeah.
There was more of the Frederic Constance, but I don't know how many. But there was a really cool Revolution limited edition version with like a salmon dial with brigade numerals. It was like much more straightforward looking.
Yeah.
I've eyed those on secondhand sites. They go for more than you expect, like 6 to 7K or so.
Really?
Which I mean is like, think about the technology and everything's almost reasonable, but it's just more than it obviously was.
And that's true of FC though. That's a brand that people don't pay enough attention to, and because of that, they can't produce enough watches to kind of serve the field, and therefore they can't continue to innovate in the way we want them to. But I mean, they're doing great stuff on new releases all the time anyway.
I'll throw out another prediction. I think that there's been a lot of talk about like the decentralization of watch media over the last couple of years, and kind of the like the increase in like TikTokers and newsletters and all these different kind of like avenues for watch media. And I feel like we might be at like capacity for that. I don't know that there'll be a return necessarily, as much as I would love it, to people just like hunkering down and reading, 3,000 word long reads on, like the new like Longines, Ultrachron or whatever. That's the stuff I love, and I enjoy the written word. But I kind of think that like TikTok might get banned, and I don't know that there's a lot of new kind of like watch influencing to be done, on that platform. So I think maybe the pendulum will swing back to kind of like traditional media, or we'll find like a different way to kind of like bring people back into like just reading good old fashioned well put together expertly crafted watch articles, like the kind of watch articles you and I grew up on, Zach. I think that's this is
good old days.
Casting. I think we all, I think we definitely kind of desire a return to that. But I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on sort of like this kind of like slow transition that's been happening in watch media over the last few years, and sort of like where it stands now?
I'm kind of curious as the person who's more savvy in social media, what you think, Devin? And
I think the complete opposite. So in full transparency, this is The reason I think this way is a long time ago, I was working actually with somebody to build a YouTube channel. This was, I don't know, 15 years ago, 16 years ago now, and they were working on video games, making video game videos on YouTube. And we actually had a bigger creator reach out to him and say like, hey, it's awesome that you're playing video games and you're trying to do this whole thing too, but I think we were the last wave of, video game influencers. So you might want to put your effort into something else. And that was 15 years ago. That was before anything even happened on YouTube and stuff like that. So I don't look at it as really, we're nearing the end of the wave, but there's just going to be another one coming. I don't know what the platform's going to be. Sure, TikTok might go away, but something else will pop up. Maybe people will switch over to Instagram Reels. If you look at the lifespan or the life cycle of some of the influencers that we know in our industry today, they are much shorter than people think they are. There are people who are huge right now who just started talking or even thinking about watches 1 to 3 years ago. So if someone can pop up that quickly and be influential in that short of a period of time, it's just going to keep on happening, I think.
It's just such a weird thing. And I mean, I guess it's just the phenomena of influencers to begin with. But I mean, half the time I feel like influencers are influencing the influencers. And it's just this like circular logic thing where they're all, consuming their own traffic. It's just like I don't know who the consumer, like our reader, for example, sort of is in that spectrum. I mean, obviously everyone has social media, but are we really like the target audience for it anymore? Or is it really just algorithmic play cycle sort of a thing? But like Malin and I have said it on the other podcast we have, I always forget what we call it now, Unwinding.
Well, it's different every episode.
It's different every episode, yeah. Brought to you by Taco Bell. Like that, we've seen this happen over the last almost, because we have 14 years in May that we've been doing this. Like, people will come along, they'll start something, they'll get a lot of noise, they'll be in, at the dinners in your face, and then you'll be like, whatever happened to so-and-so? And it's because like actually monetizing these things to make a living off of it is very different than just like getting a lot of followers. And I think that's really where the wall is going to be hit. It's like, it takes a lot of energy to do all of that content. So at a certain point, what's gonna happen there. And there's been some really interesting conversations in the last few months about this. Mark from Long Island Watch made a video about watches and people requesting watches for reviews and everything. And if you look at that YouTube video, actually look at the comments, because the comment section is full of YouTube watch reviewers, many of which I'd never heard of before, but everyone's sort of doing the same thing and saying, well, I work so hard, I deserve something, kind of a thing. It's like, okay, well, but then why is your video like this guy's video, like this guy's video, like this guy's video? And I feel like that's the sameness thing is really going to kind of collapse in on itself. But at the same time, it's like we're seeing a lot more newsletters that are long form written content. I think the challenge there is that they're sort of so insider that it's spreading the word of those is sort of a different thing. But then, they're going to hit the same issue at a certain point. It's like if subscriptions don't go up, like whether or not it'll be worth her time is going to be a question.
I saw an Instagram story or post earlier today from the account Watch Opinions, I believe is what it is. If I can find it, I'll link it. It's a very small account, but it's like, it's pretty good. Like it's anonymous. But this person posts like a bunch of like basically like kind of hot takes about like the watch world and watch media. And they mentioned that they called out a handful of newsletters that we all know, like like Tony Traina's and King Flume and a few other big ones. And his point was basically I'm not paying like $400 a year, to read all these newsletters, which is like, if you added up the cost of, all of them, the big ones, approximately, I guess, like what it would cost. And, I pay for the ones I like. I'm very happy to pay for Tony Traina's newsletter. I think he does a really great job. And I pay for a bunch of other newsletters in kind of like different areas that I mentioned. I pay for a couple of like movie related newsletters and things on Substack. And, it does add up. It's like these streaming services, just like,
I was just
another
that,
like,
the streaming services are like, I keep seeing conversation about like, I'm dropping this year, it's these 4 things are all $18 a month. They used to be $7 a month. They don't have good content anymore. I'm only going to keep one. And like, I'm in that boat too. And honestly, for some reason, like probably because I'm just so used to the format of War and WoW, where like this thing with a lot of different voices on it, sort of like you can come here for different, essentially newsletters from each different author. If you like Zach and don't like me, understandable. You just read his content, you know.
That's not understandable.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I mean, if you want to get the diversity, then suddenly you're talking about several subscriptions, which, yeah, I mean, even $50 a month. I mean, that adds up really fast. And
Sure.
we got to buy watches too, you know?
And the price on watches is going up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watches, eggs, newsletters. How can we? I mean,
Congestion.
where does it end?
Charges.
The price of a newsletter's gone up 2%.
Yeah.
My goodness. Yeah. So I mean, that's I think that's a really big open question that we'll kind of like see how that plays out, you know, over the course of the year. But that's one of the things I'm most interested to see, kind of like how things shake out. I think it'll be interesting too to see like who shows up at Watches and Wonders this year. Like, do we see more like TikTokers at Watches and Wonders? You know, do we see more of these like newsletter, you know, personalities that have kind of like come to prominence over the course of the last year or so, like embraced by the establishment, like, so to speak? I think of Watches and Wonders as the establishment, and the, like, you know, like the TikToker influencer is sort of, you know, like not that. But maybe they're trading places. I don't know. It could be like a realignment of sorts.
I mean, my first year at Basel, like being like we were listed as a blog, that was like our credential, and it was like we definitely got like weird looks from people because magazines still existed, and you know, that's how it goes. And I mean, how quick did that change? So, yeah. I have one other prediction before we go.
Yeah, go ahead. I think we got time for one more each. But yeah, go ahead, Zach. What's your next prediction?
So I'm actually going to combine two predictions I had, but one was this is still based on the Mother of Pearl conversation we had before, but that we will see a forged carbon case watch with a Mother of Pearl dial. That these things have to come together. Okay.
Oh.
You know, this is just
case Mother of Pearl dial.
This is just Venn diagrams. I'm not saying I like it. Okay. I'm just saying there's been forged carbon's been really pushing around, you know, it's been coming up. There's been some really great forged carbon pieces. If you're into forged carbon, there's been a lot of Mother of Pearl. It's just a matter of time before these things cross paths. And this is where my second prediction kind of integrates. It's like, well, who's going to do it? It's going to be an Omega Speedmaster.
Oh,
because you know, you can't have a year without several Speedmaster releases. So it's just like I just see these things sort of aligning. You know, just look, hey.
So a carbon case Speedmaster with a Mother of Pearl. There must be a Mother of Pearl Speedmaster dial out there somewhere.
There must be.
I would think.
Yeah,
it's gotta exist. Yeah, interesting. What if is it possible to do a Mother of Pearl case? Could you like get like enough Mother of Pearl to sort of like form a case
that would
hard
stand
enough?
up to?
Yeah, I think you'd have to impregnate it somehow with like a resin or something.
There's like a bunch of reduced models that are Mother of Pearl dials that come up fast. Yeah.
I bet you can get them for a really good price right now.
Wow.
Maybe this is the treasure trove, guys. You heard it here first. Like the most collectible Speedmaster reduced are gonna be those mop dials.
We should stop talking and go fill the safe really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Devin, I know you were disgusted by that last
horrible
last prediction from Zach. Do you have a final prediction that you can kind of like take us home with and save us all?
Very quickly. Don't do that, please. No brand do that. more forged carbon, please. I think it's really cool. Swatch Group is killing it with it, but yeah, don't combine those two.
What if it was the PRX with like that grid Mother of Pearl dial? The PRX forged carbon's very nice. It's a nice one.
It is, and honestly, too, the PRX Mother of Pearl is actually pretty nice too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crap.
Seems like it could happen.
Well, okay. Look forward to the Damian Lillard Mother of Pearl carbon fiber case. PRX coming soon. Yeah, where do we go from there? All right, let me scroll through a couple here.
We go straight to 2026.
Yeah. I had a couple on here just about so I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the rise of independence. I think that tech bros in general have all bought their Aquaterras, their Seamasters, their Speedmasters, their Submariners. All of those are kind of eaten up in the industry. They're already filling boardrooms as we speak. And so because of that, they are going to the independents. And they want that exclusivity, right? They want to be able to flex their watch. I think this year we're going to see a crazy increase in like limited edition flex watches. I think we're going to see bigger brands try to come across as cool independents, but really like not be able to hide the fact that they're a huge conglomerate. And they will be some really weird watches that ultimately die very quickly on the market.
So, all right, you got to give me like an example.
Yeah.
Or
All right. So,
what you're...
well, I mean, a carbon mother of pearl PRX is getting pretty close there, but I think you'll see something like a Tissot, if we stick with Tissot, coming out with so they reissued their Citadel last year from the 70s. I thought it was awesome. Everyone else hated it. You should go back and take a look at it because it's a cool watch.
Oh, I think people like that watch.
Yeah, it was
that watch
awesome.
was pretty. Yeah,
I saw it get dunked on all over the place. Every time I wore it, people liked it, but they hated that strap.
no, we liked it here. I think Ricardo,
okay.
if I'm not mistaken, is a big fan of that.
It's a great watch. It's a very cool watch.
Yeah,
That's
no,
weird.
I
I
like
didn't
it
know
too.
that. That disappoints me. If
It
you
is a
didn't like
bummer.
that, I'm disappointed in you.
Well, I guess the Cubitus kind of is getting close to that, but we're going to see a brand like an Omega, maybe not Omega, maybe hopefully not Longines, Breitling. Okay, we'll call it Breitling. Breitling's going to come out with an oval case with a micro rotor chronograph, and we'll go with another stone dial because why not? And they're going to talk about how this crazy exclusive concept has sprung up because of their work with Universal Genève, and they really want to bring back traditional watchmaking to their lineup. And they're going to lean into that whole traditional watchmaking thing, even though they're all made in factories, and really hammer it home. And the whole community is just going to scoff and put the puke emojis in the chat.
So a normal Breitling release cycle.
Ooh, okay.
I listen. I gotta say that's an out there prediction. Yeah.
Best for last.
I kind of hear what you're saying though. That like, so I think basically what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is my interpretation. Is that you're like the moneyed tech bro types have gotten their like their indie kind of like flex pieces, and the big brands want in, and they want. Okay.
Well, I think that they noticed,
Yeah,
like we said, the wave of independent hype, or I guess just unique hype, is building. And I think the big brands are going to notice and try and swallow that market before it becomes available to smaller makers.
Okay, yeah. So the big brands are going to try to like monopolize.
They're going to try and big brand it. Yeah.
Eat the lunch of the small guy. I mean, I think that tracks. That's that's what they do.
It's not going to work.
Well, I do feel like though, I mean, with Bitcoin currently surging, that audience might come back to watches, and right, there's only so many MBNFs and whatever that get made in a year, and like that's the kind of watch that if you wanted to compete with as whatever brand, like Uber Complications and things of that nature, I mean, maybe the market will be there now, so I could see that happening.
The thought of entering a new crypto fueled wave of like watch speculation makes my head hurt. I really hope that doesn't happen.
We're gonna get the Mad 2 this year. Just wait, it's gonna be awesome.
We probably will get the Mad 2.
Will.
At some point. It's definitely, we know it's coming. Guys, lots of crazy predictions. I will definitely. We're all speaking into mics, so this is all on record, and we'll have to come back to this conversation in a year or thereabouts and see just how wrong we were, or how right we were in some cases, but probably not most cases.
But how amazing will it be if a forged carbon mother of pearl dial Speedmaster does come out? I mean, that would be. It's like I should play the lotto today.
Yeah,
you know?
I would ask you to buy me a lottery ticket if that comes to pass. Honestly, like that doesn't seem that far fetched to me. Like I'm imagining that PRX with like a Tahitian mother of pearl dial. I think that would be cool.
Yeah,
like,
I think it would look cool on the
$1,000 or
PRX,
whatever,
honestly. A Speedmaster sounds a little bit more weird, like a little in the classic case. But I'm kind of surprised there isn't a forged carbon Speedmaster. I guess it's just not really Omega's bag. They do the ceramics.
It's moving up. We saw Tissot do the forged carbon first, and then Longines did the forged carbon. I think Omega's next in the Swatch group, right?
It's interesting that it's moving up when originally the forged carbon thing was like
really high.
Yeah. It's really, it's forged carbon was for a long time just sort of like not.
And it's also that is the greatest marketing terminology. Forged carbon. This is not forged. It is resin. This is injection molded plastics, or sorry, it's stamped plastics. They're strong. They look nice. They're light, but don't forged. They ain't.
Marbled forged carbon.
well, like I said, we'll see how these predictions pan out. Thank you guys both for coming on the pod and sharing your thoughts. Of course, we want to hear from our listeners and what they think is going to happen in 2025. So get in touch with us. Leave comments on the website or on Instagram, or join us in the Worn and Wound Plus Slack. That's really the best place to talk to us. And tell us what your predictions are for 2025. We'd love to hear them. Thanks again, Devin. Thanks, Zach, for coming on the pod. Always great to have you. And thank you all for listening. We will see you next time.